What's up, everybody? Today we got a good one, man. Today's video is I got my stepmom pregnant. Now I know this gonna be good.
Sonny Daniel Enterprises. Bad things. There's a lot of bad things that they wish and 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 they got plans, got plans.
I done seen enough videos on the hub to know this type of stuff is very lit. Let's go.
My dad's a total jerk, and not even good looking. So how come he was able to marry Lexi, a stunning model who's been on the cover of Vogue and dated several famous football players? Well, we live in South America, and my dad made lots of money taking backhanders. Yeah, he was a corrupt politician who was giving government contracts to whoever paid the biggest bribe. That's why we lived in an enormous mansion, even though his government salary was less than $50,000 per year.
Sound like a good life to me.
How do I know all this? Well, my dad told me. He even tried to recruit me. He said I'd make lots of money, but I refused and told him that millions of people were living in poverty because of corrupt politicians like him. Of course,
That's noble. That's noble.
he got angry and yelled at me to be grateful for everything he'd bought for me. I didn't care though, and the real victim was Lexi anyway. After she got married to my dad, he treated her horribly. He'd make her dress in revealing maid costumes and ordered her to cook for him
Dude,
or clean the living room while he watched. He seemed to get a kick out of having power over her. Okay, maybe you
that's kind of hot there, right there. That's kind of hot. You no cap, bruh. No cap. That's kind of hot right there. I'm not with all the being extra, but in the bedroom, that's kind of hot right there.
think Lexi deserved it. I mean, she only married Dad for his money. She always seemed so sad. One day, I found Lexi crying. I asked what was wrong, and she told me my dad had screamed at her for hours and said he'd kick her out if she annoyed him again. I said I was sorry for how my dad was treating her, but suddenly, she pushed me back,
Ooh.
straddled me, and started kissing me all over. She whispered, "Show me how a real man treats a woman."
My man just hit the jackpot.
I should have walked away, but I was only 18.
No, you shouldn't have walked away. You did what you were supposed to.
Having a gorgeous model come on to me was the best thing that had ever happened to me. As we were making out, I heard my dad walking towards the room. Lexi laughed and told me I had lipstick all over my face. I panicked and jumped behind the couch to hide. Dad came in and sat next to Lexi, saying, "I've got a business trip this weekend. There'll be plenty of security guards around to keep an eye on you, and they'll notify me if you try to go anywhere."
Oh, that's perfect. So they're going to be at the house together. See, this is my type of situation right here.
I recommend you don't make another mistake. Now give me a kiss. Oh, I wanted to throw up. Was my dad kissing the same woman I'd made out with 2 minutes earlier?
Yeah.
Gross. But after he left, Lexi and I started kissing again.
He didn't care. I don't blame you, bruh. You got a supermodel right there. I do not blame you one bit.
It was such a rush because I knew it was wrong, and I never even held a girl's hand before, and now I was making out with a supermodel. You'd have done the same if you were me.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, if my dad found out, he would kill us. But I couldn't keep my hands off Lexi.
Honestly, it would be worth it. Getting killed would be worth it.
Our affair went on for months. Whenever Dad went out, Lexi and I hooked up. Even though she was older than me, we fell in love. I gave her the kindness and affection my dad wouldn't. But then, Lexi fell pregnant. There was no doubt I was the father because it happened during one of my dad's business trips. Of course, we didn't tell my dad. He thought the baby was his. But after my daughter, Haley, was born, my dad became even more of an ass. He told Lexi she was fat and threatened to give Haley away if she continued screaming, even though she was just a baby. Lexi and I thought about running away, but we didn't have the money, and my dad would have found us anyway.
Like this when they start trying to plan to kill the person that's got all the money because like what other option is it? You know what I mean? Gonna throw a little poison in something or something.
The only way we'd be free was if my dad died or went to jail. So I came up with a plan. I told my dad I'd changed my mind about helping with his business deals. He was so happy. He said he'd never been prouder of me.
He about to set his daddy up though. That's so dirty, man.
Over the next few weeks, I went with him on business meetings with various companies. It was shocking how open they were about bribing my dad and how much money they were going to make.
He's sitting there probably recording the whole thing.
They wouldn't have been so open if they'd known that I'd planted hidden microphones in Dad's office. I was recording every word they said. After a few months, I had enough evidence to send my dad to prison for the rest of his life.
That's dirty, man. I couldn't have done nothing like that. That's dirty. That's just dirty. You don't do stuff like that.
But I had an even better idea. I decided to blackmail him. That was the
Yeah, okay. That's a little bit better.
hardest conversation of my life. I'll never forget my dad's face when I told him, "She's not your child." He said, "What?" I said, said, "Haley, she's not yours. I got Lexi pregnant while you were away on a business trip." My dad laughed. That's the best joke I've heard in a while. But I just glared at him and said, "Haley's mine. Lexi and I are leaving today and taking her with us. We won't let our daughter grow up around a monster." That's when Dad realized I was telling the truth. He shoved me up against the wall and snarled, "You think you can sleep with my wife and I'll just let you go?" I pushed him back and said, "You treat your wife and my daughter like servants, and we're not putting up with it. I've got hours of recordings which prove you've been taking bribes. If something should happen to me or my family, one of my friends will send them to every single journalist in this country, as well as the cops, and you'll go to prison for the rest of your life." Dad's face went red. He was so angry, he punched a hole into the wall, but he knew he couldn't touch me. An hour later, Lexi, Haley, and I left my dad's house. We took his favorite car and $50,000 and moved into a hotel. I thought we had plenty of money, but we didn't.
Not $50,000. You should have took way more money than that. I don't know what you was thinking.
Lexi was used to living in luxury, and she hated the cheap hotel we stayed in. After just 3 months, she'd spent all our money.
Well, see, now you should have got your girl a little bit more in the game. Like you, I mean, come on now.
She told me she couldn't survive like this, and said she'd find someone else if I couldn't give her everything she wanted.
Dang, she didn't flip the switch on you. The switch. She didn't flip the switch on you, man.
But how was I supposed to do that? I didn't have a job. I was barely out of high school. So I went back to my dad and demanded $5 million. I knew he could afford it.
That's what you should have did from the jump, though.
He laughed in my face and said, "Oh, I knew you were just like me."
Sure enough.
Didn't you say you wanted to earn your money legally?
Yeah, he sure is. Just like your daddy, man. We all grow up to be just like our parents anyway.
He was right. Maybe I wasn't any better than him. But I didn't care. I couldn't lose Lexi. I said, "I know you have the money. Give it to me." My dad replied, "I'll give it to you tomorrow at noon. But you'll have to promise me you'll never ask for money again." I said, "Deal. I promise." Wow, it had actually worked. Dad gave me the money, and I could buy everything Lexi wanted again.
But see, that's the problem right there. You should have got that girl in check. Like, no, you need to learn how to budget yourself. I'm not about to get $5 million. You about to spend money on ridiculous stuff. That's just, he should have got that girl in check a minute ago.
We moved to a better hotel, and we were happy for a while. But over the next few months, I began to see why Lexi had married my dad.
That's what I'm saying. You never really, you was just falling in love with her because she was fine. You never really got to the bottom of what was actually going on in her head, though. And her spending that money at the beginning should have told you.
She was incredibly shallow and only cared about money. Although she was still the hottest woman I knew, we had nothing in common, and she refused to act like a proper mom.
She should have found that out before you had a kid with her, but dude got caught up. I understand, though. I understand.
One day, we had a big fight. I told her she was dressing like a tramp, and I didn't want her going out with Haley looking like that. She got really offended and said, "Do you think it's fun staying in all the time with a little boy like you?" That night, I slept on the couch. And when I woke up, the safe where we kept our money was gone, and so was Lexi. I was left with Haley, but no money to take care of her.
Bruh, this dude green as in bushes, man.
I had no choice but to go back to my dad to get more money. But when I went to see him, he said, "You promised not to ask for more money." I said, "I don't care. Lexi stole everything from me. Just give me $1 million. That'll be enough for me. This really is the last time I'll ask you for anything." He warned, "This will have consequences." I didn't know what he meant, and I didn't care. He gave me the money, and I drove back to the hotel Haley and I lived in. A few days later, when I went to Haley's kindergarten to pick her up, they told me her mom and grandfather had picked her up already. My blood ran cold. A few minutes later, my cell beeped with a text from my dad. It read, "Come to my house. We need to talk." I didn't want to go, but I had to make sure Haley was safe.
I mean, he said it would have consequences, man. He caused this own problem for himself. Because he should have never got that caught up with that girl where he was that stupid and let her take advantage of him like that.
When I arrived, Dad was holding my daughter in his lap. She was sleeping, and well, he said, "So, my son, the tables have turned. I won't play your games anymore. Your daughter and Lexi will live far away from you. They'll be safe as long as you don't publish any of the recordings." I begged and pleaded, "Don't take my daughter. I want to live with her. I'll give you back the $1 million if you'll just let me be with her." But my dad said,
"Nope.
You're lucky she's still alive. And since I'm feeling generous, I'll let you see your daughter once a year." I looked at my sleeping child. She was so beautiful. I wanted to hold her tight and never let go.
I mean, you put yourself in this situation, man.
I knew I had no choice. So I went back to my hotel. I realized I had $1 million and almost every freedom in the world. Life wasn't too bad. even though I missed Haley like crazy. That's why, over the next few months, I apologized over and over to my dad, hoping he'd change his mind, but he wouldn't. Since I didn't see Haley very often, she barely knew who I was when I visited her once a year. I took lots of photos of her while we were together, but she always looked sad and never called me dad. Seeing her like that broke my heart. She deserved better. I was desperate to do something, but since I couldn't use the recordings I had, I didn't know what. The more I thought about it, the only solution I could think of was if my dad died. Now, I'm not saying I planned his death. He was always surrounded by bodyguards, guys who'd been in the army. I wouldn't stand a chance against them. But one day, my dad was assassinated. Of course, it had nothing to do with me.
You sure it didn't have nothing to do with you?
But it solved all my problems. I got my daughter back and inherited all my dad's money. The only one who was left with nothing was Lexi. She came to see me and begged me to give her some money.
Nah.
I asked her, why should I give money to someone who stole from me? She replied, because your dad took all my money away from me, and I'm the mother of your child. Wow. In the end, we agreed I'd pay her a small allowance as long as Haley lived with me. I hate giving money to a selfish woman like her, but at least I have my daughter back, and that's all that matters to me.
Plus, you could always have fun with that girl. Dang, that was crazy, man. See how much better y'all see the difference between this animated story channel and then the other ones? These are so much better. Whether they real or not, it don't matter. It's just entertaining. I can get into these more. So let me know in the comments what y'all think about this story, man. I like this one. This one was good. I like this one a lot. But I love y'all. Peace.